I'll just say one. All right, here we go. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this wonderful day and for the chance we have to meet together to discuss this case. We pray that thy Spirit might be here with us as we do so. We might be inspired as to how it can relate to our lives and what we can learn from it. And these things we pray for, and we do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company. So a little bit of background.
Yeah, have you ever stayed there before?
I don't know that I ever have, no. So they manage other hotels as well, right? So it's not just their own hotels.
I think so, yeah.
It sounds like from the case. It seems like they do own some hotels as well. Have you ever stayed at one?
That's where I stayed in Florida when I was just there a few weeks ago. So it was my first experience.
Fancy that. Was it pretty nice?
It was very nice. In fact, a friend of mine here was like, isn't everybody there in Florida so mean? And I was like, everybody was really nice to me, but they're all being paid to be really nice to you too. So
that makes a difference.
But I enjoyed it quite a bit. But I also had firsthand, for the first time, experience seeing how they recruit business for the condos. Like they have a real estate office in part of the lobby for the condos at the top, and they have like a reserve section of the pool for the owners and a reserve section of the patio for the owners. So I thought it was pretty interesting. It was my first experience with that.
Well, it'll be good. You've got firsthand experience here.
Oh, I'm just an expert at luxury, let me tell you.
You are, apparently. Background on it, or on the case, Millennium Partners and Ritz-Carlton Hotel. So they're working together on this project, right? So It's in Washington, D.C., and it's called a hospitality complex. So it's a little different than just a hotel. It sounds like, so the one you stayed at was similar to that? So
no, it was just a hotel.
Oh, it was just a hotel.
But I mean, it did have the condos, but it wasn't attached to anything else. No. Well, you know what? It did have restaurants and a spa. I don't know if that counts. Yeah, this seems like it was like several things.
Top. Yeah, so it's like a sports club and shopping center and everything there too. So yeah, interesting. So it's a little bit different maybe than what they're used to as well. And so naturally with that comes some change. And the biggest one is the biggest, I think, source of conflict in the case is the partnership, right? And so the partnership between Millennium Partners and Ritz-Carlton, and then how much say Millennium Partners has in the hiring and training process. So, all right. So, so what's the issue then with the case?
Well, I think the issue is how much give on each side should there be. They have differing opinions. You know, the two main characters, James McBride of Ritz-Carlton and Brian Collins of Millennium Partners, they seem to like each other. Like they seem to respect each other, but maybe have just slightly different, just slightly different ways of going about things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And so what was the name of the guy from Millennium Partners?
Brian Collins.
And he came from Four Seasons, is that right? It seems like there's like
he's also working with Four Seasons, but he's just the manager of hotels for Millennium Partners.
Okay. I thought there maybe was some conflict there, but okay. So maybe just his experience, I guess, working with Four Seasons is kind of influencing him.
Yeah, he's definitely worked with lots of different hotels.
Cool.
So.
All right, and then why that's important, why understanding the conflict, I guess. So understanding what the root of the problem is will help us understand how to best answer this question of whether to change the
well, I have to say, like, the first time I read through this, like, I was like, what do we write about? There doesn't seem like there's a big problem here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like it's, number one, maybe too late to do anything about this, which is when we always seem to get our case studies.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like this is a challenge, but not necessarily like there's a cut and dry, black and white issue. You know what I mean? Some slightly different opinions and some compromise, but it seems like that's pretty common in business, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe that's what they're trying to get us to do with this case, is to just look at it, for this issue, what could have been done for this one, what our recommendations would be. Is there an issue there or not? Maybe, like you're saying, maybe there really isn't an issue. Maybe the 7-day training course or whatever should be just left alone. And then they just want us to defend that. I mean, I guess it did say at the end of the case that they're opening another one similar to this, right? So
right.
I think maybe they're trying to take the lessons learned from this one and apply it to the next one. But
they have 5 openings to go, according to the video that our professor.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think you
put on there, but I didn't catch that in the case study. Whoops. But you had mentioned something about Millennium being concerned about the hiring process at the Ritz. I didn't catch them being concerned about the hiring process as much as just the training process.
That's true.
I guess they contracted so that Millennium could be in the know about the general manager and the president and one other position. Then everything else was up to the Ritz-Carlton to hire. So
yeah, and it sounded like there was no hiccups there, because whoever the president was, he ended up taking mostly. I mean, it was all Ritz people that he kind of brought in, and so it sounded like there really wasn't a huge issue with that either. So I think you're right. I think the biggest concern here is just, well, how do we train these guys? Do we train them, for a longer period of time, or just keep with the 7 days? I think the biggest concern that Millennium Partners has is they just want to get to that 80% capacity as soon as possible.
Or higher, right?
Right, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's so true. It's not like you can take your back stock of inventory in the hotel business and sell it all at once. You know what I mean? There's not ever going to be a rush on it. You only have a set amount. Every night that you lose is a night's business loss. So I can see both sides to this. 7 days does seem super fast to me.
It does. Yeah, it's kind of, you kind of jump in, and I guess we'll kind of discuss that here as we go. So the first thing it wants us to discuss is what the competitive advantage is for Ritz. Like, what's their competitive advantage in the industry?
I think their name recognition is their competitive advantage in the industry.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I've lived in Washington, D.C., and I'm trying to think like who they would be recruiting, and I can think of maybe some hospitality schools there. Everybody would, nobody wants to work at the Motel 7 if they're going to hospitality school. And Washington, D.C. has a highbrow crew. So I think their name is what they have going for them. Millennium Partners doesn't really have a name recognition in hotels that people would, know.
I think you're totally right. I think that's definitely taken years of experience to gain that name, but I think it really is, when people hear Ritz-Carlton, they know, hey, these guys are going to treat me, really well. It's going to be an awesome experience. And just like you said down in Florida, right? And everybody lived down in Florida as being mean, but when you went there, I mean, naturally, because you went to a Ritz, you had a really good experience. And so I think that's their competitive advantage.
Right.
All right. So what is Ritz selling?
They want people to feel good. I just read that part in the case study again, how when people go to the bar, they're not going for drinks, they're not going for conversation, they're just going for the feel good experience. And that's totally what people are going there for. But also probably they're going there for, what's the right word? Like they want to tell their friends they're staying at the Ritz. They're going there to like be kind of uppity.
Prestigious, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that prestige that they're looking for too.
I would just like to say my room was comped. I was not going there to be prestigious.
yeah. I stayed at Motel 6, stayed under your breath, whereas with the Ritz, you want to, project that.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, you're right. I guess they're also selling in a class, a quality of product that you don't find elsewhere.
Right.
But yeah, I think that stood out to me too, that part where he was talking about in the bar or whatever, you're selling the experience. You're not selling food, you're not selling drinks or even yourself. It's the experience and how they feel.
Exactly. And I will say, I was like the out of place person at the Ritz-Carlton, like gawking at other people like, oh my gosh, look how expensive their car is, or what I mean? So I'm thinking people go there because like birds of a feather flock together. They don't want to hang around, those of us from the trailer park.
Yeah. All right. Next question. How does the Ritz create ladies and gentlemen in only 7 days?
Well, they don't. So that's why the key is to hiring right. They said, adults can only have certain capacity for change. So you have to just take what's already in people and pull it out of them. So you're not creating ladies and gentlemen, but you're giving them the incentive to be ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. I like how it talked about, let's see, where did I put it? I don't remember. I have a lot of notes here. Anyways, so like in the very beginning, like even the first 2 days or whatever, it was just focused on values, and you teach them about, or you talk about values, because if their values don't align with the company's values, then it doesn't matter what you teach them at that point. So they really need to have that instilled in them already. And I think that kind of answers our question then of, whether 7 days is enough. If you're hiring and you're interviewing right, you're looking for people who already have experience, maybe in the industry, and they understand service and they have the right values and whatnot. And then 7 days is just a matter of learning how Ritz does it versus how they've done it in the past. You're not necessarily teaching them brand new how to, be a waitress or how to be a doorkeep or any of these things. They've already got that experience. And so you're just training them how Ritz does it. And so I think maybe that 7 days is different. I think if you were taking just like your average Joe Blow and trying to teach them how to be a really good, employee for Ritz-Carlton, then maybe 7 days wouldn't be enough. But
and they were poaching employees from other hotels, right, and restaurants around town.
Yeah, and once
they're trying to poach the best people. Right. I think that the 7 days is, the question about it is that they've never done a multi-use complex before. But my question, maybe you can answer this, is how much different will their hotel really run as part of a complex? I mean, it's still got its own culture and its own values that it needs to uphold. I can't imagine that it's going to run tons differently just as part of something else.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either, because they're going to be run as separate units. I mean, I think maybe, understanding how the pool works and stuff, like you were saying, how like when you were there's a certain section assigned to like people who own condos or whatever there. And so I think that might throw a little bit of a wrench in the system, but for the most part, I'd be with you. I think that it's probably not going to be much different than just a normal, like straight up hotel. I don't know. Maybe there's other things that I'm not seeing, but.
Well, I feel like Millennium Partners, they're mostly concerned about money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they want extra training because they want their employees to be extra trained, or do they just want them to go faster and work harder? They have no break-in period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. I bet. And it seemed like that may be a good argument. Maybe, the people that Ritz-Carlton bring on during that initial opening period, maybe look for people with more experience and that could handle a swifter rollout, maybe instead of starting at a 50% fulfillment rate, then start at a 60%, maybe make sure that the people you bring on are able to handle that, and then by doing that, you reduce the time it takes to get to 80% or full capacity.
Right. But you are setting a precedent for the rest of your openings.
True.
Like, you're not always going to have the pool of people to work with that are going to be that good.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So would you rather have people come and not have that great of an experience? Because word of mouth is the worst thing that could happen, or the best thing that could happen to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. And it's honestly, that's something that it's so funny how these cases really relate to a lot of what we're going through as a company too. And so right now we're looking for people to hire and whatnot. And so the constant thing, we're in a pretty small town up here in North Idaho, Sandpoint. And so we don't have a huge.
Is that near Rathdrum?
It is. Yeah. Do you know where Rathdrum is?
I just have a friend that just built a house in Rathdrum.
Oh, cool. What's their last name?
Andrews.
Yeah, because they're just out. Rathdrum would be just outside of our ward boundaries, because I live in Old Town. It's even closer to Rathdrum than Sandpoint is. But
oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's a small town, and so we don't have a lot, especially for our for the skills and stuff that we're looking for people that have experience in search engine marketing and whatnot. And so that's the constant struggle we're running into with these people we're interviewing is, do we want to pay more for somebody who has more experience, or do we want to pay less, and with the idea that we train them and we take longer to get them to the capacity that that we want them to. But that's the question is, you know, if we start somebody less, yeah, maybe it'll cost us less to train them and whatnot. But when they're interacting with our clients and whatnot, if they're not experts in the field,
like your gun guy, right? Your gun guy.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He was a little rough around the edges.
Exactly. Yeah, a little bit rough around the edges. And so that's, you know, so it really is a fine line, you know. Do you pay more for somebody that's already got a lot of experience, but then with the idea that they'd be able to just jump in full capacity and you'd be able to, you know, keep all of your clients happy? And yeah, so it's a trade-off. I think you really need to, it's kind of a balancing act.
So I would say though that Ritz has like a proven model with this 7-day rollout. They did not indicate that they had tons of issues with it, right? I didn't see any issues.
Yeah, they're still like rated like the top, you know, service company in the world. So it's it's kind of like, why are they even addressing this when they're like
they're addressing it only because their partner wants more money.
Yeah, and I guess so. That maybe leads us to the next question of what should $700 million buy in the way of influence, and that's what Ritz-Carlton, or not Ritz, Millennium Partners is bringing to the table, right? They're bringing the $700 million investment into Ritz-Carlton. So how much, you know, because you've already got this really awesome thing in the system that's working really well, you know, how much influence do they have now to change the things that aren't broken?
Well, I am guessing that they got to see all of the Ritz-Carlton financials before they ever made a deal and saw exactly how it went, and are now just trying to push their boundaries. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say that I know the right thing, but it is consideration either way.
Yeah, no, for sure. So then, so your answer, so would you recommend that they would just leave the 7-day system alone, or would there be any tweaks that you would recommend to them?
So I think I'm going to recommend that they add a couple days.
Cool. So extend it out a little bit.
Oh, I'm just trying to like be the voice of compromise here, you know, like maybe they can still have their 7 days roll out right before the opening, but bring everybody in a couple days earlier and call it, you know, multi-use facility training or something like that.
So how many more days are you thinking? Just like 2 or 3?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a compromise when you're only at 7.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a perfectly valid. I mean, especially when you're considering like how much it costs in the scheme of things. Like it's like, I think in the case it stressed that a couple times. Like it really, that 7-day period is really minuscule when it comes to cost and how much it really offsets the balance sheets and whatnot. And so, yeah.
Well, and if they are supposed to be like working together in this multi-use facility, you need to be cross-trained just a little bit. You need to know, you know, the right hand needs to know what the left hand is doing. I mean, housekeeping will mostly be doing housekeeping, but somebody will come to a housekeeper and say, hey, how do I order my room service? Do you know what I mean? And they need to like be ready for those kinds of questions.
That's a good point. So I guess the other question then, are there other ways that the staff could experience, so are there other ways that the staff could get experience without delaying the opening?
Yeah, they could give everybody in the staff a free night stay at another Ritz-Carlton so they can go have the experience and know how it's supposed to feel.
I liked the incentive program that they had there. So each year they would pick like the top 5 dream team or whatever, and they would go, you know, for a week or whatever and have $500 spending money. So that's pretty cool.
That was nice.
Yeah. I think, I like that. Anyways, I think I would probably agree with you. I think, you know, maybe extending it a day or two. And I think there needs to be some sort of little bit of compromise because of this investment. I mean, I don't know that they need to change it like company wide. Like, I think they should just keep the 7 days like for other projects, but maybe just for this partnership with Millennium Partners, they come to some sort of, you know, middle ground. And it doesn't need to be groundbreaking or like drastically different. I think either just try to appease them.
Well, I don't feel like any, you know, gauntlet was thrown down. It wasn't like they're insisting on anything. They're just like, are you sure?
That's true.
So
yeah, and so I guess maybe you could go back and just be like, well, you know, we are pretty sure we've done this for years and years, and you look at our track record. I mean,
but
so, I mean,
does it change and affect the Ritz culture by succumbing to this peer pressure?
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, we have to get in there day 1, day 2 and talk about our culture, because otherwise they're lost. So am I losing people by suggesting you add a couple days on at the beginning, or what? I don't know.
That's a good question. Yeah. I mean, I think when you think of like the most applicable experience and like stuff that you actually gain, 90% of what you learn about your job is learned from in like
On the job.
anyways. Yeah. I mean, there's only a certain amount you can do, you know, in mock-ups and whatnot. So actually being there and learning. And I think that's why, like with the MTC, like in the Mission Training Center, you're only there for, you know, a month or two, and then they throw you out to the wolves. Like, you don't know the language, you don't know the
You're only there for
well.
2 weeks if you don't learn a language.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. You're only there less than a month. So, and then for languages, you know, 2 months normally. So yeah, and then they throw you out because we know, I mean, that's where most of the experience comes from.
So maybe I'm going to rescind my suggestion and just say, hey, let's roll with it. This can be our trial for multi-use facilities. We'll see how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I could go either way. I wouldn't extend it like a huge amount. And so maybe a day or two, like even if I think throwing them a bone a little bit would be important, just to keep the relationship amicable, and, you know, because this is a big deal, but extend it much more than a day or two.
Right.
Cool. So connections. What principles, if any, form this lesson's reading apply to this case?
From Catherine, from the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. How does it relate to this case at all?
Sure. It relates to this case. I feel like this is a Q&A where you're the Q and I'm the A. Come on.
Yeah. And I'm judging you, by the way.
So, I know. Where's Laura? Well,
no, so I think it relates to it in that it's like it's this new dynamic, right? So there's this partnership that they're having to work together, and I think in order for the team to work really well together, there needs to be that trust. And so I think, you know, finding ways to build that trust. And so maybe one way that Ritz-Carlton could build the trust with Millennium is to maybe compromise a little bit, you know, and look at it and say, hey, this is kind of what we can do to make you happy. And I think maybe by doing that, they'll earn that trust, and then the relationship will be stronger for it.
So will you earn trust, or will they just learn that you're somebody that concedes your values?
That's true. Yeah, it could be.
And also, in the book, there's a leader. Like, there needs to be a leader in this case. So it's just like Brother Poley said, who is in charge? Is it James McBride or is it Brian Collins? Like, who's in charge?
It's true.
Like, it has to be one or the other. Yeah.
And I think also, like, if you did decide not to appease them, then like the way that you responded to them is going to be really important as well. So, I mean, you don't, like with Catherine, I think she was a really good example of that. Like, she would listen to them and make sure that everything came out before she, you know, voiced her thoughts on the subject. And so, I mean, I think maintaining an open relationship where if Millennium has these suggestions or thoughts, they feel, you know, like they actually have a voice, and that Ritz-Carlton will listen to them, I think is going to be really important. So however they handle this, whether they, you know, decide, hey, this does look like something that we could use some extra training on because of this unique relationship or this unique business that's going on.
Dynamic, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so then, you know, or whether they say, actually, we feel like our 7-day thing is still sufficient. I think the way they respond to that and maintain that trust is going to be really important.
So, one other question that goes along with that Brother Pulley asked was, what leverage does Ritz-Carlton have? So I don't think they have as much leverage as do Millennium Partners, who are also working with the Four Seasons, and do you know what I mean? What leverage do you think Ritz-Carlton has? Only their name,
Their name, yeah, and their experience. I mean, I guess that's big leverage, right? So Millennium went to them for a reason, because they're the best of the best. And so I guess that's the leverage, you know, say, hey, well, you signed on to it, take it or leave it. This is, you know, how we do business. And we've developed this over the years because we know that it's a system that works. Yeah, I
It's
guess,
kind
yeah,
of a
you're right.
wonky system. Did you, I mean, housekeeping.
Yeah, that's kind
Housekeeping.
of
I was like, whoa. Whatever you got to do to keep it rolling, but I thought it was a little wonky.
So some of it might be a little over top, but I don't know. And maybe, you know, maybe their employees like that target, you know, for the type of people that they attract for employees, maybe that's exactly what motivates them, I guess.
Yeah. Hey,
So,
roll with it.
yeah, roll with it. But cool. Well, I tried to find out what happened after this. Were you able to find out anything more about them or no?
Oh, no, I never looked it up.
Yeah, I tried it and I couldn't really find much. I mean, Ritz-Carlton is still doing really well today. Naturally, you went there. I don't know that they do much as far as partnerships go, but yeah. Anyway, so I'm supposed to end with that, like as like a summary of what happened to them after the fact. I don't really know. Sorry,
Well,
I tried to
failed
find it.
in your leadership.
I failed. Yeah, so I guess you can critique me there now.
I don't know that I've come to any more like concrete conclusions as of our discussion. Now I just have more questions.
I know, right? Well, we did a good job then.
Yeah, but what am I supposed to recommend? I recommend you go either way.
I recommend that they do either. I think the nice thing is because we feel like they could go either way, we could just decide on which way, and then you have enough to you know, fuel that argument. Because I think it really could go either way. So
I put that the issues I'm focusing on are: should the Ritz change their 7-day training model to appease the management company? Should the Ritz open at capacity if training is extended? Does changing for Millennium affect the Ritz culture adversely? Does current training account for new challenges associated with opening a multi-use facility? And does Millennium Partners' vision align with the Ritz? Which it doesn't matter if it aligns as much as making it align. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they already signed on. It's like choose your love your choice, right?
right.
That's the gospel application.
Yeah, it's been already done now, so well, there it goes.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything different that you saw in the case?
I mean, I think that's it.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of notes, but I mean, I think I've got enough to go either way too. So I just have to pick a direction. I'll see where.
Pick a side.
Yeah, see where I go. I mean, I think I'm leaning towards just keeping the 7 days. But
oh, what? You're the person that's like, oh, you gotta have some compromise.
I really do have both. I mean, because I think it could be both. But I think, yeah, I don't know. I think I would go with the 7 days, but maybe agree to bring on people that maybe are even a little bit more qualified than the people they already do have, just to strip up production a little quicker. Like instead of doing 50% the first month, and then, you know, from there, I would go 60% the first month. And then that would take down, I mean, you could just do, instead of 3 months as a rollout period, you could just do 2. And so you'd be at full production by month 2 instead of month 3. So I think maybe that would be a good way to go. But,
oh, we're all about the money.
We are all about them. But, cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, John.
Next week, we'll have Laura back with us.
Laura will lead us. We will have 30 extra minutes worth of discussion just because of Laura.
Normally when I lead, it's really short though, because I just get it done.
Well, I think that we covered a lot. I'm now very confused. I got to go write it up before I head off to enrichment night tonight. Got an hour and a half. Whew. All right.
Awesome. Well, good luck.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Anicia.